and welcome to another episode of FooBar. In today's episode, I'm going to interview Ben Kehoe. If you want to know more about serverless, cloud computing, or software engineer practices in general, subscribe to my channel in the red button below. I post a video every Tuesday, so let's get started. So this is another video in the series of interviewing people that are very referent in the serverless community. If you want to know who I interviewed in the past, go and check the link I leave you in the card or in the description box to find the whole playlist. So now let's get to the interview. Hello and welcome to our interview today. I'm very happy to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes, and can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Ben Kehoe. I'm a cloud robotics research scientist at iRobot and an AWS serverless hero.
Yes, I think the iRobot and robotics sounds very cool, so I need to know a little bit more what you do there.
My life is a lot of buzzwords.
Yes.
Serverless, IoT, robotics,
yes.
Cloud, everything.
I know.
And so I work on cloud robotics, which is about helping robots connect to the internet to enable them to do more and better things.
To the Roombas.
Yes.
We all know them.
Yes.
So you have serverless Roombas.
We do. We're entirely serverless in production.
Cool. How long have you been doing these serverless Roombas?
4 years.
Wow, so you started right away Lambda was announced.
Yeah,
Can
just
you
after.
Tell the story a little bit how that got to get started?
Yeah, so we launched our first connected Roomba in 2015. And that was with a full solution IoT cloud provider.
Okay.
But we knew that we wanted to switch off to sort of own that IoT application so that we would control our destiny better. But we didn't want to own servers to do that. And so we decided in 2015 that we thought, you know, between AWS IoT, AWS Lambda, and then all the other services that AWS provides that are fully managed, that we could actually build that thing without including any servers, no EC2, no Docker. And we've been very successful. We've been running serverless in production for over 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many Roombas there are out there?
Well, we sell millions of them a year.
Wow, so a lot of
there are a
connected
lot of
devices.
connected robots out there.
That's really cool. So I imagine with all this, that's how you got interested in Lambda, or did you know about Lambda before?
So I finished up my graduate school degree in 2014 before I came to iRobot.
Okay.
And at the end of that, I was looking at how to package up robotics algorithms and provide them as web services.
Okay.
And so I had been looking at Docker and sort of building out a proof of concept of that, but of course scaling it would have been hard and something I had no idea about. And then Lambda came out and it was like, oh yeah,
that's perfect.
That would be great for this.
Okay, and then you joined iRobot and the story.
Yeah, and then went from there.
That's really cool. So you've been doing serverless forever, basically, since it got started. So how you see the challenges of building serverless applications? How you see that are like the biggest challenges nowadays? Because a lot of them are solved already.
Well, a lot of it's always getting better.
Yes.
Yes, and part of serverless, especially from the beginning, has been there are a lot of rough edges.
Yes.
There are a lot of things that are easy or at least straightforward to do in traditional architectures that haven't been solved yet in serverless. And so deployment for a long time was, you know, something that hadn't really been figured out. And we've started to figure that out for single deployments. And that's pretty mature at this point between the serverless framework and SAM and another number of other frameworks. But we haven't completely figured out how to do incremental rollouts. So when you want to update something in place, how do you do that in a way where you can filter traffic through with A/B testing, with canaries across the entire application in a way that exists and is pretty much solved for traditional architectures.
AWS doesn't have a solution for that.
It has individual solutions for pieces, weighted aliases for Lambda and canary stages for API Gateway, but not for all the things that you can do in AWS.
So you still need to orchestrate
the
deployment somehow. So that's something that maybe in the future we see it solved.
I'm hoping so.
I remember the first time I met you was in Serverless Conf and you were talking about deployments. And this was like almost 3 years ago.
Yep, I've been banging that drum for a long time.
That pain is still there. And also you're talking about service discovery. We were talking about that earlier. Is that another challenge?
So one of the things I'm most envious of the container people for is Envoy and Istio and now AWS App Mesh, and the way that you can sort of have a system that has a unified way of looking up resources in it. And Envoy does that by having sidecars that run alongside the containers. And that doesn't really make sense in a serverless world on AWS Lambda. And so you need a service to do it. But exactly how that service should work, and especially as, when we look at serverless and how we build things, we often have many AWS accounts.
Yes.
You end up with much more complicated infrastructure situation that is not well matched in terms of the key value stores that you need to access.
I think now, because at least this is one of my things with serverless, the code is so simple, but the architecture has become like super complex. Yeah. Before it was the other way around. You had very complicated software, and the code was impossible to read, but the architecture was a box.
Yep.
And now we just turned the problem. I don't know if that's good or bad, but
I think it's great. I think it's great because the code is something that's complicated and that I have to maintain and update to make sure it's secure. The infrastructure is largely declarative, right? It's a diagram that I'm wiring together to do the things that I want with just little bits of code here and there.
Just glue.
Yeah. Well, and that's writing the code is the hardest part.
Yeah.
And so I want to minimize that as much as possible down to just my business logic.
That's why I think we all like serverless, because we can be not the best programmers in the world and still do great applications. At least that applies for me. You've been doing serverless forever, and I'm sure you have a huge wish list of things. At least in Twitter, you always have like something you want AWS to come.
There's so many things.
How about the reInvent launches? Do they tick some of those?
So Layers is going to help a lot. So Layers, the thing I'm excited about there is, before, when there was just one code package that you put into Lambda, the security companies that are providing security mechanisms, you had to trust essentially that was actually in the code that you deployed. And now with the layer, you can say organizationally, we're going to enforce and verify that is in place and running, and then user code goes on top of that.
I think Layers, at least for me, that's one of the things I was really annoyed with all these companies, that they were asking you to wrap the handler around things. So then you have a really fat handler. And for me, that was not focusing on the business logic, because then you have this fat handler that you need to deploy, and you need to test, and you need to make sure that you're integrating correctly, and you have 20 steps before your core run. And I think Layers is really, at least it sounds that it's solving that problem.
It's a step in the right direction.
Yes, so I'm happy to see that. And also that you can have that, as you say, enforce it. Like your monitoring is evenly and your security is even distributed around your application. So I have not tried it, so I'm excited. Have you tried?
I have not.
Okay, so we are both going home and trying Layers. And what other things are was released that you are happy about?
So on the service discovery topic, Cloud Map is a potentially good service for serverless service discovery, but that's going to take a lot of investigation to determine.
That's your next battle.
Yes. And I think, I think that's.
Yeah, because WebSocket is you are using the IoT thing, so you don't need the WebSockets.
Well, it's still useful.
Yeah.
Right, and it still puts us in a mode where we can develop better event-driven architectures, right? So we talk a lot about CQRS and event-driven architectures, and we can draw all these nice pretty pictures on the back-end side, but when the only thing we have is a request response API, there's a mismatch there. And now we have WebSockets, we can say, all right, everything can be event-driven, including the client.
The client, yes, because with the IoT you're using MQTT, so you don't care that much about it.
And WebSockets.
And WebSockets as well. Yeah.
IoT has supported WebSockets since the beginning.
Cool.
But it's very linked into the IoT ecosystem and not linked in, and doesn't, with WebSockets on API Gateway, the Lambda can send events back very easily.
And I think that's the power that I think all the client developers are waiting for. Like, I want WebSockets. And what is pending on the wish list?
Pending.
Like, what is the biggest thing that you want in the next 6 months Amazon to fix? We can hashtag them here.
Yeah. I think that when we're building ecosystems, constellations of when we're building ecosystems, constellations of web services, we need to figure out how to authenticate and authorize these web services to talk to each other. And serverless is about not owning things.
Yeah.
And the number one thing I don't want to own is an auth system.
Yes.
So I want to use AWS IAM to do that auth between all the services, but it's not, the complexities of cross-account.
Yes, because that's when somebody can plug somebody that is not what you want,
right.
And that's the scary part.
And how to set up the permissions between services and check it against organizational policies is something that AWS IAM, which is designed for primarily around sort of simpler, more human-facing or more service-based authorization, doesn't quite fit for the programmatic use case of a dense web of microservices.
Yeah. But I don't know, at least I have the feeling that they are trying to make their security easier with all these announcements, the outpost, and I don't know, remember what else. But I think maybe they comes with something.
Oh, I hope so.
Because security is very, very important. And when you're building big applications that are all distributed, there's always somebody that can get in the middle.
Yep.
So that's kind of a requirement for big corporations to go serverless. So, last question. I'm sure it's not your first reInvent. So
it's my fourth
reInvent. So you've been here almost more than half of the time.
I guess so.
Yeah. How?
It was already big when I started, though.
Yeah.
People have been here for like 7 years, but it was 3,000 people.
Wow. So how you feel like being here now? Is the second time as a hero?
Second time as a hero, yes.
Yeah. So what's your experience after all this week?
Yeah. Well, it was logistically better than last year, which is really great. And it's always great to see people, to meet new people, to talk with AWS folks, to talk with people in the community.
Did you attend sessions?
And try to get to sessions. I made it to a couple.
And Monday?
On Monday I went to the Container Power Hour, which was fantastic.
Everybody attends the sessions on Monday, and after that they don't go anymore.
Well, I made it to the serverless under the hood and the serverless leadership sessions, which were deep dives on sort of the technical side and the sort of organizational thinking side. And both of those were great.
Yeah, that's cool. And you gave a couple of sessions.
I gave a couple of sessions too.
About?
Sort of a listing of all the serverless services that people think of a serverless application as something that uses Lambda, and not realizing that Lambda is usually the small part of a bigger network of fully managed services. And so running through, you can use AWS Glue, and you can use AWS Athena, and you can use Kinesis, and you can use SNS, but you shouldn't use Fargate, those kind of things. And then I gave a talk with Alex Casalboni, who's an evangelist for AWS, on the service mesh stuff.
Cool.
What we have, how parameter store, secrets manager, and some of this auth stuff. Cool.
So thank you very much for coming, and
thanks again.
Hope to see you again in my channel.
Yeah.
So thank you.
For today, I hope you like it. If you did, give a big thumbs up, and also a thumbs up means that you want to see more interviews. So I'm planning to make a second round of interviews around the middle of the year, and I would like to know who you want me to interview. So leave it in the comment box below. Around here, as always, there are other videos from my channel for you to watch, so go ahead and click on it, and if not, I see you in the next episode of FooBar. Ciao, ciao!